Hey, what's going on, my friends, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Victor, and today I'm going to share with you 6 empath gifts that are very rare and also very powerful. Now, these gifts are oftentimes not necessarily encouraged by your parents and peers and society. So unfortunately, a lot of empathic people are walking around with this massive potential, and it's not necessarily being expressed to the fullest. And the purpose of this video is to help you fellow empaths out there become aware of these gifts that you already have and encourage you to express it, to really embody it to the fullest for the benefit of not only other people, but also yourself. Number 1 is to know without knowing why. Do you sometimes just have what I call a knowing? Do you sometimes just know something without knowing why? Without having any awareness of where the certainty and information came from? Oftentimes this will pertain to your own life journey, your own sort of like your own path, whether it's a choice you make, whether it's with a decision about people and whether they're a good fit for you or not. Sometimes you just know. An example for me is a long time ago, I was pretty much embedded in my career. I was a fitness trainer, and that was my passion. That was something I put a lot of time into. I became certified. I eventually opened up my own gym. It was like I was on this sort of, I had this momentum going on my life path, and all of a sudden I just knew it's time to stop doing this. I didn't even know necessarily what would come to replace my lifelong project and career, but I knew in the depth of my being that I needed to stop personal training. And there was something else for me. I didn't know what, but I knew I had to stop. And eventually I closed down my gym, and here you see me today on YouTube sharing videos about spiritual awakening and stuff. It was something I just knew. Now, the one unfortunate thing a lot of empathic people don't do all the time, and this is also my former self included, is we oftentimes don't listen to it. We don't trust it. We don't take action from this knowing because our mind says, well, you don't know how do you know? You have no evidence to support your intuitive hunch. So therefore, oftentimes these really positive things we could do, these great choices we can make, oftentimes we don't make because no one said, listen, you should trust always your intuition. You should always go with your gut, with your instincts, with your hunches. They're real and they'll benefit you. Number 2 is you all have the ability to accurately assess, engage if a certain person is a good fit for you or not. Instantly. It's another one of those interesting things that all empathic people can do, but oftentimes don't trust. You can know, you can tell by just the presence of a person if they're a good person or not, generally speaking, of course, if they are gonna be, again, a good fit for you in your life. And if they're not gonna be a good fit, if there's some kind of thing that some kind of like maybe negative occurrence that might eventually happen, you can feel it in your own body, in your own intuition, right upon meeting that person. Before they even say, hello, I'm George, or hello, I'm Barbie. Before they speak, you will feel if they fit well into your world or not. And this is one of those wild things that's kind of difficult to really act on because you're a good person. You want to give people the benefit of the doubt. You don't want to just judge them. And yet, how many times have you been burned? How many times have I been burned? A lot. There's been many times I've just known there's something off with this person. I can't put my finger on it, but I know it's there, and I've denied it. I've ignored that, and I figured, well, I should just give it a chance. Maybe I'm being skeptical, and every time Eventually, as life would unfold, I'd see, that's what I was sensing. Number 3 is you all have the ability to gauge authenticity within yourself. And it's always changing. And this is why a lot of empathic people, if they really start to act from this awareness, will find what people call this elusive life purpose. Most people, I read this book recently called Hive Mind. It's by this psychologist. And it goes into the science behind something most of us know, and that is the degree of conditioning that we are immersed in. Cultural conditioning, just you're growing up immersed in your parents' beliefs and energy, society, the media, all of this, as we know, it creates, it conditions in us this sense of me that a lot of times is completely like light years off from the truth of who we are. And most people just sort of let that conditioning mold them into this sort of character that, again, is increasingly distant from their core natural self. But the empathic person can feel this. You can feel when a career or a relationship or a life path or even like a hobby or interest, you can feel it in your body if it's in alignment, if it resonates with your truth. And a lot of empathic people right now are waking up and they're realizing my career, just like I did with my personal training job. It's like, whoa, this does not fit. This does not feel right anymore. And you'll have this like knowing, there's that word again, you'll have this knowing that this path, this situation, not only is it not a fit, and I know that intuitively, but I also know that if I keep at it, if I don't make a change, I will never be happy. I will never be satisfied. I will never be fulfilled. I will never be living my full potential in this circumstance because you're able to detect that it's not authentic. It's not in alignment. And this can be challenging. This is one of the reasons why a lot of empathic people get super stressed out. They feel like they're alone. They feel like they're going crazy. They feel like, man, why does no one talk about this circumstance I find myself in? But the empathic person, courageous enough to listen to that feeling inside of them that says, this is not you. That's a scary thing to entertain because that begs the question, well, what is me? Where would I go? This is all I know. This is my familiar. This is all I've done. To admit that this is not me, it implies jumping into the abyss of the unknown in a very over-the-top sort of way. But those that can do this and admit that truth to themselves will find something more meaningful, something that does give you a sense of authentic purpose. And when you're living your life in accordance with your truth, that's where the happiness comes. You don't have to necessarily, I use career because it's such a common theme, a common metaphor, but it doesn't have to apply here. But a lot of times another thing that will stop people is maybe you know what you're doing isn't working. And maybe you have some idea of what you'd like to do, but what you perceive is this massive gap between where you are now, your current situation, and where you want to go. But I tell you this from my own experience, the moment you step off the path that is not yours and step onto the path that is, even in those infantile beginning stages when you haven't made it yet, because you put yourself into alignment, there's the happiness, the fulfillment, the inner freedom, that expansiveness, all of those qualities, those states of being that you probably crave, they're there from day one. And sure, as you go down a path that is authentic to you, it will accelerate, it will expand, you will succeed in a sense, but the success that you may think you need are just momentary little triumphs. That's no different than eating a piece of candy. It's stimulating, and it wears off. The real gem is you living authentically. And as an empathic person, you will know very clearly if you are and if you're not. Number 4, empathic people are such good listeners that you have the ability to heal people literally with just your presence alone. A lot of you empaths are healers. Many are not aware of that, and many don't need to be aware of that because it's not a formal thing you do, even though some of you may pursue that. It's more about just your beingness, your state of your energy. It's like your energy is nice. Your energy is pleasant. Your energy is welcoming. Your energy makes people feel safe to be themselves, safe to express themselves authentically. You help people feel heard. Where most people, as you know, you probably have gathered this pretty quickly in life, when you're talking to somebody, a lot of times people aren't actually listening. They're, in a sense, hearing you, but with the agenda of, how am I going to respond? What's my response going to be? Empathic people, you listen with a state of energetic and emotional openness. Your heart, it opens. And you have a genuineness about you that people just love. And I bet you have, I bet, tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, please. Tell me if I'm wrong. Do people or do they not come up to you and like what you might perceive to like overshare? People you might not even know well, they might just sit with you, and because they feel so comfortable, they just start sharing their deepest, darkest secrets. And you could tell that even in their mind, they're probably, you could just sense they're thinking like, I don't know why I'm saying all this, but it just feels right. It just feels comfortable. I just feel free to unburden myself. And all you're doing is sitting there. Sitting there. These people walk away feeling great. They're like, man, I love this person. They'll love you. And you won't even do anything. You just sit there, listening with an open heart. It's beautiful. You know, I'm a coach in like a formal sense. And one of the things I've realized is that telling someone something is very ineffectual. Even if I can see their issue or like what's going on beneath the surface, I could tell them, I could point it out and say, dude, this problem at work is because your relationship with your mom, you didn't feel loved and you felt abandoned, and that's why you're creating this over here in your job. I could say that, and the person could understand it, but I've learned that does almost nothing. However, when I listen and ask like strategic questions to lead them to their own breakthrough, just from their own dialoguing, their own expression, that's when things start to click, when people have their own conclusions. And my point is, you don't have to be a formal coach, you just have to be a good listener, which you naturally are. Number 5, you have the ability to have superb health. A lot of people are like, you know what, Vic? I've been listening this far and I was agreeing with everything, but this is where I have to take a stand and say, no, this doesn't resonate, bro. And I understand. And hear me out though. I know a lot of empathic people, they feel fatigued a lot. They feel drained easily. They might struggle with like central nervous system fatigue or adrenal fatigue, or even manifest physically their emotional unresolved in like getting a cold, or you know, a lot of you empathic folks will physically manifest your emotional issues. And on the surface, this looks like a problem. This looks like, oh my goodness, I have worse health than so-and-so. But it's, all of that implies a heightened degree of awareness. For example, for me, I went through like, when I was like 23 or 24, I had a spiritual awakening. And then all of a sudden, I was in like super good shape. As I mentioned, I was a personal trainer. I was in like really good condition, really fit. And all of a sudden, I just started feeling exhausted for no reason. I wasn't doing anything different. I just felt fatigued, just like my body was not recovering from the demands of my life. And I thought, man, my health is declining. But that fatigue was a wake-up call. It was a wake-up call from like my higher self saying you could eat healthier. You could sleep more. You could improve some things about your routine, and this sort of temporary manifestation of your less than optimal way of going through life is gonna be gone, and what you'll be left with is better health than when you began. So oftentimes empathic people will manifest pretty quickly a physical scenario, a physical wake-up call, not to say your health is not good, but to say your health could be really good if you get to the root of why this symptom is there in the first place. This is just a phenomenon, a whole process that I have observed a lot of empathic people go through. And it's something that, unfortunately, a lot of empathic people, they accept as a truth. That's why, one of the reasons I feel inspired to share at least my perspective of empathic people online, because I see a lot of content out there that will almost like reinforce, in my opinion, to be a very disempowered way of relating with the whole empath title. Like, empaths, they get drained easily. Yeah, says who? Says a lot of people. Not me. I say on one level, that's true. On another one, you can learn from that. I believe we attract everything in our life. I believe that we create that. It's coming from somewhere. And I also believe we can positively bounce off of anything in our life, even fatigue. I went through a point where I was getting sick all the time. And people, in fact, on my YouTube channel, people would say, bro, you're sick all the time. I always had a cold. Instead of just accepting that, I asked why. And at the time, it's because I was allowing myself to be too stressed out. I was not managing my stress. And that sort of getting a cold all the time led to not only the awareness of that, but also the awareness of why am I stressed? I was proceeding through life from like a place of scarcity. And I could trace it back to a whole line of shadow work that was done because of this sort of surface level thing. And once I dealt with like a lot of the core, even childhood issues, believe it or not, that led in to me being stressed and anxious in life. Not only once I did all of that work, did I start sleeping better and did my health improve and the fatigue go away, and I almost never get sick now. It's been like 2 years, I think, since I've had a single cold. But the point is, my health improved because my health was not good. Because I chose to learn from it and then do the work. And every empathic person, in my opinion, can do the same thing. And finally, and most importantly, number 6, this is something the world needs desperately, that you have going for you nicely. Every empath has the ability to open their heart to people who don't necessarily deserve it. Empathic people tend to be very forgiving, very understanding. Why? Because they can see deeper than a person's conditioning. You see an irate, sort of, dramatic, what's the word I'm looking for, obnoxious sort of person behaving. An empathic person sees someone who's hurting, someone who's in pain, someone who hasn't been given the tools how to manage their pain and trauma effectively. And unfortunately, they're just expressing it out there unconsciously because that's all they know. And in that, you can see that, okay, you can forgive and you can understand. Not that we always do in the moment. Of course, I get mad and triggered sometimes. I'm saying generally speaking, especially from a distance, from afar. You can see beneath the conditioning. In fact, this gets empathic people into a lot of trouble sometimes, especially with relationships, because you might be in a relationship, whether it's like a lover or even a friend or whatever, and all you can focus on is their potential. You can see the light inside of them, and that keeps you sort of sometimes where you put up with a lot of behavior that is not fair to you because you just love so deeply and you can see so deeply into someone. Now, again, this can be a problem. A lot of times, empathic people end up in very unbalanced relationships where their love is not at all being reciprocated, and the person's sort of a toxic influence. But that's a whole tangent there. But regardless, at the root is an amazing quality. It's an amazing thing to be able to do. I had this one guy, he was actually my business partner when I was running the gym. He was really religious, this dude. His name was Marv, super religious guy. And I liked him though, we got along, even though I'm not really that religious. He said, Vic, he said, Jesus said, no, he didn't say it like that. He said something along the lines of where he kind of paraphrased something in the Bible. He said, Vic, it's easy to be loving and open and kind to nice people. Anybody can do that. A good Christian, the way he would put it, a really powerful soul can be loving and kind to the a-holes in the world, the jerks, the people who are, not cool to you. That takes true love, true understanding, true openness to do that. And right now, unfortunately, we're living in a time where the world is seeing the repercussions of all the collective trauma and unconsciousness and just lack of understanding of how to be a complete, empowered human being. We're seeing this collective orchestration of that. And there's so much momentum. It's kind of like when you're in like a really, really heated argument and it's just like two egos just going to battle, and there's too much pain, too much trauma inflicted that no one can like be the bigger person. And it just escalates and escalates and it escalates into wars and things like that. I believe some people came here from wherever, from the stars, some say, to come into the world and to change it from the inside out. One open heart at a time, going through life with a unique energy, with a unique ability to let people feel heard and loved and understood, with the unique ability to forgive, with the unique ability to know one's truth and live a life consciously, where by the end of your life, you'll have lived a life that is a fantastic example of what it means to be a loving, empowered, authentic, sovereign being. And that is the gifts, all that you possess. And I pray that if no one told you, no one encouraged you to really double down on those gifts, let me be the one to do that, because again, it's not, your life will change. My life has changed as I've really taken these sort of things seriously, but also it's allowed me to help a lot of people as well. And every single one of you watching, especially this late in the video, has that exact same potential.